and they're just picking up jugs of milk or water and stuff, and you know, have it like the old nasty 70s couch, and it's just like
up and down off the couch.
Up and down off the couch, which I mean is fine, you know, because a lot of the elderly community won't leave their home and stuff like that, and they want to show that hey, just because you're older doesn't mean you stop moving. You know, do stuff at home. But it's kind of funny because some of the videos they use like jerry cans, and you and I know jerry cans from military, but I'm like, what 70-year-old has jerry cans at home is doing these deadlifts? So it's kind of funny, but it's good at the same time.
Only the Vietnam vets.
Right.
Like at home.
Yeah. I mean, he's got his VFW hat or something on
right.
at the same time. We'll see. I don't know.
The Palmilla hat with the pins, and then the jerry cans.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Perfect. For those of you guys who just tuned in, we're going to be starting right on time in another 2 minutes. So if anybody's online right now, we got anybody yet?
You're Becky.
Awesome. Hey, Becky.
Taylor.
Excellent. Terry?
Taylor F.
Taylor. Awesome. Hey, Taylor. So guys, start writing in about areas of your squat that you'd like to improve upon, and we'll be able to address everybody's comments once we get started, which is going to be in another couple minutes here. We've got a really fun program for you. We've done this a lot of times live, and we have absolute plans to continue doing it live. And then on top of that, incorporating more upper body type stuff as well. The squat, you know, in terms of the form, we really focus on a lot of lower body. Does the squat involve upper body? Absolutely. But we really focus on the low back and strength and stability of the core in that programming. So we've had a lot of requests to do some upper body stuff. So we'll be working with Drew, the other CrossFit coaches that we work with as well, to talk about some common faults when we're doing things like handstand push-ups, overhead movements, and get some shoulder stability, neck stability stuff in the programming up and coming as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm Dr. Marco Accordo, and this is Drew Kostelic. Drew has so graciously allowed us to use his space for this CrossFit squat clinic today. And the very first squat clinic we ever even did was right here at CrossFit Unrivaled. And CrossFit Unrivaled and the Kostelics in general have been an amazing partner in terms of health, wellness, and our Live Higher mission, which is just to help everybody enhance every single part of the quality of every aspect of their life. And that's absolutely the mission that they live as well. I hated CrossFit 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I absolutely did. And the reason why is because my first exposure to CrossFit was as a doctor. And I would have these patients who really weren't ready to do very intense types of motions, jumping into CrossFit and injuring themselves. And so I had a very bad taste in my mouth about CrossFit, and I thought the whole thing was just kind of garbage and that there was a lot more safer things to do out there. And then one day, one of my patients came in and he was bragging about this super high box jump max that he just got. And I was like, well, I could do that back in the day, right? I don't know if I could do it now. And I didn't like that for some reason. I hate that back in the day mentality. Now, our bodies change over time, for sure. But my opinion is that anything that my body is capable of doing within reason, for whatever age and level of life that I'm at, I should be able to do. And so the idea that I was kind of questioning whether or not I could hit this box jump was like eating at me. And I was like, you know what, let me see what this CrossFit thing is all about, because I had a ton of patients that were doing it. And when I started seeing the CrossFit population per se, and not the people that were new to it hurting themselves, I realized that these guys and gals are not hurting themselves all the time. So I started shopping around. CrossFit Unrivaled was right around the corner from the practice. And as soon as I walked in here and met Drew, I was a wrestler. It smelled like home in here, and I was like, that's it. This is for me. So Drew was kind enough to work around my crazy schedule. We did a 2-week boot camp.
Yep.
The training and the coaching that I got here was incredibly effective. And I felt that I could progress through everything that we needed to in a way that was safe for my body, because I was still recovering from and rehabbing a really bad low back herniated disc. So there were things that I couldn't do right away. Like the sit-ups did not happen for a whole year. Adding weight to a lot of things didn't happen for a whole year. But progressing through it in an organic and safe way, I was able to really progress in my level of fitness and got back to the old me, so to speak, so that now I don't say back in the day. My fittest self is now. And I intend for that to be the case until I take my last breath. Now, granted, am I going to get older? Sure. Am I going to slow down a little bit? Yeah. Am I not going to be as strong always as I was the day before? Absolutely. But I'm still going to be able to keep up with my kids. I'm going to be able to keep up with my grandkids. I'm going to be able to enjoy my family as I get older, and that's really what CrossFit is all about. Drew, you want to say anything to that real quick?
Actually, you summed it up perfectly, Marco. You talked about your story about coming in here. Everybody looked at Marco and was like, wow, he must be in awesome shape. Well, he came in here, realized that he was not probably in the shape he once was. He had a lot of limitations, even strength limitations that maybe would have prevented him from kind of hitting the ground running, as we like to say. But we saw some faults, we addressed some weaknesses, and he gradually, like you said, over a year, took his time, like we always do, to get him to where he needs to be, and now he's doing pretty much everything.
Yeah.
I don't think there is anything that you can't do anymore.
No.
And that's what it is. And our job as a coach, and this is what we love about CrossFit, because they are small group environments, you guys come in, we recognize those faults, those weaknesses, and everything is universally scalable, okay? We say, hey, Marco can do handstand push-ups. Becky over here can't. So we're not gonna make sure Becky's doing handstand push-ups. Marco can, but we're gonna give Becky the tools and the knowledge to get her to where Marco is one day. That's what it is, okay? And we want, like Marco said, this is not about being the stellar athlete or anything like that. This is so you can enjoy life, play with your kids, and enjoy everything outside of the gym without the aches and pains. And that's all we're trying to do, is get people better for life. That's all.
Absolutely. So the problem that I found with CrossFit wasn't CrossFit per se. It was the way that it was commonly done. And in the United States, in general, culturally, we have an issue with rushing into things too fast. So if you go to Japan and go to an Aikido gym, all right, and you sign up and you want to learn Aikido, the first thing you do is spend months washing the mats. It's all you get to do. And they take things very slow and stepwise, and they have patience as a foundation of what we do. In America, you join a karate class, you're breaking boards in your first week. Right? That's not necessarily ideal. Everybody's always looking for the life hack, but there's no life hack for fitness. So ultimately, what we need to do today is learn about what the squat needs to be, all right? Identify issues with your own squat, okay? And then be able to start retraining those habits so that your next PR is not your last PR. Picking up what I'm putting down? So write in for me, help me out, guys. Do you have an additional smartphone or some sort of a device or a person that you're watching this with so you guys can rip out some air squats right now and film them? Let me know. If not, that's cool. This is one of the challenges of being virtual versus in person. Okay, that's fine. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do some air squats, all right? And Drew's going to talk about some of the fundamentals and help you guys see what exactly I'm talking about. Now, we're going to talk about the core, okay? We're going to talk about the lumbar disc. We're going to get very technical, so get out your notepads and stuff so you can write some of this stuff down. But ultimately, the core is a barrel of muscle. It supports your midsection, it supports your upper body, and what the core needs to do is minimize motion and transfer power. It's the exact same way Mike Tyson can knock somebody out in one punch. The power doesn't come from his shoulders and his arms. The power for Mike Tyson's punches, and any boxer or any real punch that's thrown ever, comes from the hips. And the core stabilizes the trunk, transfers that power out through the fist. Does that make sense? So, the idea that the core is moving us around is not necessarily true. It stabilizes things. So the goal is that I want to maintain a nice neutral spine during the entire squat motion. And that takes motor discipline, number one. For those of you guys that already do CrossFit, it's going to take some retraining of old habits. And for those of you guys that are new to the squat movement, it's going to take training in the right way. Okay? My hip needs to be able to move a tremendous amount of range of motion so that my core can stay right where it needs to be. So as I squat, you will notice my stance is a little bit wider than hip width. My feet are turned out. And the reason why is because of the way that the femur is shaped. All right? So the reason why we turn our feet out is because look at the femur right here. Okay? If the foot is forward, the femur turns like this. And that makes for a lot of impingement right here at the forward part of the pelvis right here. When I turn my foot out a little bit, it allows us to have much greater range of motion in the hip joint so that this can all stay exactly where it needs to without bending forward like this. And the fault we're really going to hammer on today is called butt winking. It's when your butt curls under yourself, kind of like that pooping dog posture as you're at the bottom of your squat. So,
I think you stole that one from me.
absolutely. Guys, all of the workouts today, I literally stole from Drew, which he stole from somebody else.
Of course.
There's nothing that is original here. Okay, we're just going to put it into a system where you guys can know and how to use it. All right. So, as I'm doing my squat, you will notice that I've got this natural curvature of the low back. To find your natural curve, because some of us like to hang out like this, some of us hang out like this. To find that natural curve, I'm going to squeeze my butt. That is the natural, neutral position of my low back. My core is going to engage so that I can let go of my butt, because you can't walk around with a squeezed butt. You end up walking like this. Doesn't work. So my core is engaged now so that my legs can move. And I'm going to maintain this curvature the entire way down. All right? And Drew's going to talk through some of the motions and how that actually happens. My feet are turned out, and I'm going to come down just like this.
Yeah, so Marco's actually demonstrated a really beautiful spot. I'll have him come back up for me one more time and actually watch his hips right here at the very subtle initiation. They broke back, then down first. And that's so Marco can really engage those posterior chain muscles. And we're talking about posterior chains, we're talking about the glutes, talking about the hamstrings. And notice he is not losing that nice lower curvature of that back, okay? So come back up for me, Marco. All right, so remember, we don't want to initiate with the knees. We always want to initiate with that hip, but it's very subtle. If I over-exaggerate that hip, can you demonstrate that for me, Marco? Over-exaggerating that hip back too far, that can be too much, and we just want to make it very subtle of that hip rake here at the hips, back, then down. Notice the knees are bending, and he's just going straight down, but always maintaining that nice tight core. I know it's hard from this angle, but if Marco can stand up and face them, what we always talk about in CrossFit is our knees tracking over our toes. So Marco does have a good toe out, like he talked about earlier. So when he's squatting, he's making sure his knees are going the same direction those toes are pointing, okay? Now, Marco did talk about toeing out. Everybody's going to be slightly different. Marco's anatomy is different from mine, but that's getting into the weeds. We're not going to really talk about that. All I want you guys to focus on when you're squatting is making sure whatever is comfortable for that toe out position, your knees are always following that direction. Easy way to look at it, guys, is when he's squatting, go ahead, back down for me, Marco, is if he looks down kind of over that one knee, if he can't see, or if he sees his big toe, he's probably pretty good. If he can't see that big toe, that means his knee's in the way of that, okay? That's kind of your own self-assessment tool for when you're squatting. So if he's in the bottom, he looks over, and he's like, oh, there's my big toe, cool. But if he's doing this, he can't see his toes at all, he knows his knees are caving in on him.
So, we're talking about tracking knees, super important. I want to talk about the common misconception of ass to the grass. We've all heard ass to the grass, and it's a great mnemonic to remember to get low, but ultimately, if you concentrate on getting your butt to the grass, more than likely you're going to try and think about sitting down on the ground, which is going to turn that pelvis the wrong way. So I'm going to demonstrate a butt wink right now so you guys can know what you're looking at when you're doing your own squat. And butt wink usually happens around this level right here, and it comes from a lack of hip mobility. And so to keep going lower, because this is locked in where it is, my low back starts to round out. But this is effectively butt to the grass, okay? What you gotta be thinking about is crotch to the grass. So if I try to lower the middle of my pelvis down to the grass here like that, my low back stays in a much better position. So no ass to the grass, crotch to the grass. So we're going to talk about the anatomy of the low back right now and why it's so important to make sure your core stays nice and stable, okay? So I've got some markers right here, and I've got this beautiful spine right here. So we've got the bones of our low back, okay? These are the vertebrae. Between each vertebrae is this disc space right here. The discs are extremely important. The discs are the weight-bearing unit of your spine, and they provide mobility, they provide flexibility, and a shock absorber. The function of the bones, do they bear weight? Yes, obviously it's a structural component of your core, they bear weight, but the primary function of the bones isn't as a weight-bearing unit. It's actually to supply the disc with the nutrients it needs to be nice and healthy. That's why if you ever look at a T-bone steak, right, what you got is a cross-section of this part of the body right here. The blocky part of that T-bone is very spongy, all right? These bones are very spongy in their appearance because they are extremely porous. The blood and nutrients that your disc needs travels through the bone and is nourished that way. And ultimately, it's nourished by direct diffusion. The discs do not have their own blood supply, except in very rare and pathological types of situations. So, in order to have your discs well nourished, you need to move your spine. Now, what happens is that the spine gets stuck. So we're going to talk about the disc right now. We're going to talk about the bones. So in cross-section, roughly, and I'm really good at drawing, okay? So in cross-section, roughly, you've got the disc here. All right, you've got the posterior elements of the disc. Excuse me, this is the vertebrae. You've got the posterior elements of the vertebrae, all right? And then you've got the vertebrae below it with the posterior elements of that, okay? The spinal cord goes down the back, just like that. And between each of these segments exits a spinal nerve. Extremely important, guys, right? We know how important the spinal cord is, okay? To give you a gruesome example, we all remember who Christopher Reeves is, okay? He broke his spinal cord at a very high level. Lived out the rest of his days paralyzed from the neck down. That is a gruesome example. I'm not using it lightly, but the spinal cord is infinitely important. So too are all these spinal nerves because these go out to all the rest of your body parts. So, the disc lives between these two bones, just like that. All right? So, for those of you guys who are online right now, take a screenshot of this right here. Okay? We've got the disc right here, and then we've got vertebrae right here. Take a screenshot of that. You're going to need this model in a minute. I'm drawing it really big so everybody can see. Usually I've got two models. All right, so next thing we need to figure out is, do we have an eraser? No. Okay. We've got an eraser. It's coming. So the next thing we've got to do is figure out what this looks like in cross-section so we can start to understand what the heck is going on here. But long story short, when these joints are not moving the right way, they start to degenerate, number one. Number two, they start to block this nerve pathway. So if you've got nerves exiting your low back that makes everything move the right way that needs to move, we want those nerves to be firing. Thank you. The whole thing. Appreciate it, Drew. We want those nerves to be firing. We want that communication to be free and clear so that your body can move the right way. Nerve blockages equal biomechanical motion that is not correct. Make sense? It's like a partial paralysis. Okay? So we're going to draw the disc in cross-section now. So what we're going to draw here, this is what the disc looks like, roughly, in cross-section. Perfect. Still good. All right. So basically, the way this is sliced, all right, we've taken a slice through the low back, just like this. This individual is laying on their back, okay, and their feet are coming out to you, just like you would read an MRI. All right. So in the middle of the disc is what's called the Nucleus Pulposus. And this is a very jelly-like material. It's really good under compression. That's why your body can hold up so much weight. Guys, the world record squat weight is over 1,000 pounds unassisted. And that guy wasn't worried about his spine at all. He was worried about his femur snapping in half. The spine is extremely strong when you use it the right way. All right, so now, out here, this part of the disc is made of concentric fibers and concentric layers of fibers. I might need a new, we're going to switch to green, guys, bear with me. Concentric fibers and concentric layers of fibers that are all oriented in different directions. So you've got the outside one that's like this, and then the inside one is like this, and then the one before that is like that. So it gives the disc a tremendous amount of strength under tension. That's why you can do a plank, because your spine works great under tension. Or GHD sit-ups. Your spine works so well under tension. All right? Now, what happens when those joints are not moving the right way, or in the course of any type of movement you ever do wrong with your low back, tears start to develop in these fibers. And at first, the tears are on the outer fibers. And they get deep. They also start to get broad. Okay? The dangerous thing about this whole situation is that there are no pain receptors on the outer fibers of that disc. So what will you not experience in the face of that type of disc damage? No pain. No symptoms whatsoever. So what do? Keep doing it the way you've been doing it, right? So this type of damage can occur as early as your teenage years, all right? And we see tons of kid athletes, Drew sees it all the time, tons of kid athletes with horrible biomechanical habits that they are just getting away with at the moment. But every time you do a rep the wrong way, you're damaging a part of your body that then needs to heal. And the problem happens when you're doing so much damage so quickly that your body can't heal. And as we age, our body heals slower. We have the exact same amount of healing capability, it just takes a lot longer. Okay? So what ends up happening is that these get more broad, they get deeper. And eventually, when you're using your spine the wrong way, when you've got subluxation that's been going on for so long, so I just dropped a new word at you guys, subluxation, and this is a big one. It's what we do in chiropractic, and it's the reason why good form is so important. Subluxation occurs when you've got bones that are out of place, or joints that are not moving the right way. So if you're butt winking and your back is not designed to be under load in that position, that is a subluxation that you're creating yourself. And the joint will wear out. All right? The body is designed for millions of repetitions. And to quote the supple leopard, you're going to be able to do it until all of a sudden you can't. Every time you do a rep the wrong way, you're burning into more reps. So if you have 1,000,000 reps under your belt that you can do flawlessly, every wrong rep is going to be using up 10 of those. Make sense? Okay. So what happens here eventually is that these tears get so deep that they actually penetrate enough layers that the disc can start to bulge, or even worse, those tears can get so deep that it tears through the whole thing, and this nuclear material actually squirts right out. So we've all heard of disc bulges, we've all heard of slip discs, we've all heard of disc herniations. Okay, we're talking about the exact same thing on a continuum. So anything you've heard in the media, we're talking about disc degeneration, degenerative disc disease, degenerative joint disease. We're talking about the exact same thing on a continuum. So don't get caught up in the lexicon. Some doctors even call this arthritis, right? Okay. Now, when you've got a disc herniation, you're definitely going to feel that. And unfortunately, it's not until this type of stuff starts to happen that they actually start taking care, you actually start having awareness and care. Okay, does that make sense? Now, surgeons love this. Surgeons love seeing this because they know that if they put you under the knife, right, they're going to go in there, they're going to snip that off, shave that down, and you're going to wake up with 0 symptoms whatsoever. But nothing was done to correct the underlying problem, okay? And the underlying problem is that you've got joints that are out of place causing this damage to occur in the first place. So what happens 3 to 5 years after a low back surgery? You guessed it, the exact same thing happens again, and guess what? Surgery number 2. And sometimes we don't see people in the office until they've been through surgery number 3. And once you get hardware in your spines, guys, it is not a good situation. There is nothing that's going on right here that is not correctable through natural means. Now, that's not to say that surgery is never appropriate, all right? Don't misquote me or take me out of context. There are times when surgery is the only thing you should do. Like if you've got loss of bowel or bladder control, or you're facing permanent paralysis because of this kind of stuff, definitely go see the surgeon, a neurosurgeon, or an orthopedist that's got experience with this kind of stuff. But short of those 2 situations, you can always fix and heal this toward natural means. All right, so we talked about the disc. Let's talk about the squat. So there are 3 reasons why the squat will not be correct. Excuse breathing for a second. So, reason number one is going to be a lack of mobility and flexibility, okay? We already talked about the fact that you need your hips to be able to move beautifully and freely to get that super deep squat. So what do you do in the meantime? Well, guys, while you're building that flexibility, you gotta go to a shallower squat, okay? Because if you're forcing that depth before your body is ready, you're gonna do damage to your body. Will the flexibility come? Absolutely. But take your time, guys. This is not a race, all right? Nobody cares about your PRs except for you, okay? I will high-five you all day for a PR, but guess what? You're not breaking any world records. Most of you guys, no offense, you're not going to the games, all right? Regionals don't even exist anymore. Nobody cares. So be healthy. Go about this the right way, all right? And make sure your next PR isn't your last. So take your time with this kind of stuff. So we're going to go over some really cool flexibility and mobility exercises such that you guys can work on this flexibility the most right way. The first thing we are going to do is some rig work, and Drew's going to walk you guys through a banded mobility workout where we can work on the depth of your squat and getting this super, super flexible. So I love that lunging Spider-Man. When we take this perpendicular, we can start with that one.
Sounds good. All right, so I believe before today, Marco asked if you guys had bands. This is really important if you guys can use these bands because they're going to allow you to get that mobility that Marco was talking about earlier and get more traction into certain areas of the body that maybe just stretching just doesn't hit. Okay, so the first thing Marco's got is that band, and he's tied it off roughly at his knee height, okay? Just roughly in that area is fine. But now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the inside leg. So if you guys notice, his right leg is in that band. He is facing this direction, and what I'm going to have Marco do is get into that nice long lunge, okay? So his banded leg is going to be the front leg. Back leg's fully extended. He wants to feel that extension is kind of hitting that a little bit of that hip flexor on that side. But what this band is doing, guys, is pulling that femur out of that hip joint just a little bit just to get some traction into the joint to help free things up. And Marco can now work that side of his hip. And now he can do a few things here, all right? He can work some depth, can work on getting more range of motion with depth by thinking about taking that elbow down and then also twisting like he is, all right? And when we twist towards this leg, so he's twisting his belly button towards that front leg, he wants to just not twist his shoulders, but his whole spine as best he can, but he's squeezing as he does it, all right? So as he's squeezing, he's getting that nice rotation in the hip. He's gonna hold that for a few seconds. And now what he's thinking about, he's going to take that same side elbow down as low as he feels a good, gentle stretch. Don't force anything that's never there. And then hold that for a few seconds. And then just back and forth, okay? And every single time, his eyes are following his hands as he rotates, okay? Because a lot of times people cheat this, and they're just going to kind of twist their arm around and not get the full rotation that they need for that spine. The only amount of tension, guys, that you need in that band is just enough that you feel the traction of that hip, okay? So Marco's flipped over. He's going to give you guys the front view. So you notice that elbow's kind of reaching down on the mid of that foot. Notice he's twisting those shoulders. He should be thinking about nice, tight core, right? Tight core as he twists. Notice his eyes are following his hands. Back leg is off the floor. Now, if you guys are struggling to keep that back leg off the floor, it's okay to drop that knee. That's fine. But as you get stronger in this position, go ahead and challenge yourself with the knee off the ground. But as you do this more and more, you guys are going to get further trunk rotation and further depth. Now, I will say, try to do it about a minute, okay? If you don't have a minute on each side, get at least 30 seconds. Okay, guys?
So, do you realize Drew was talking about a tight core the whole time?
Yep.
This is not a core twisting stretch. This is a pelvis and hip opening stretch. That's the big difference there. So,
yeah, when do we do these? On days we squat, right? And that's what we're talking about, is a squat. So, all right, next one, guys. This is going to help, okay? Like Marco talked about, the ass to grass type thing, but we are not focusing on our ass. We're actually focusing on that pelvic floor, okay? Marco talked about it earlier. When you guys are squatting, think about getting the crotch down there. Ladies, you guys all heard the term Kegels, right? Guys, when we're all adults here, Think about when you have to stop that urine flow, squeezing those muscles. That area around that pelvic floor is how you should be pushing down into the bottom, not your ass back.
Yeah, so when you guys start adding reps and load to a squat, if your pelvic floor isn't super tight and engaged, you're going to blow an O-ring. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Nobody wants that.
All right, so now we have the band. Actually, Marco's got it up around the waist, okay, just above the butt, okay, right inside lower back. Now he's walked out, so there's a decent amount of tension there, and he's already got his feet into our squat stance. Remember, we want our heels, guys, roughly shoulder width apart, nice toe out like we talked about earlier. Now Marco's going to tighten up and then sink down into that squat. What Marco wants to feel is that band is pulling his hips forward, okay? He's not relaxing into the bottom, okay? He's allowing the band to help pull the hips towards that post, okay? Think this position, but notice how upright this chest is. He's not folding over. He's really concentrating on how tight that core is, not just the belly, but also that upper and lower back. Remember, we don't ever want to lose that lumbar curve. He's also, what did we talk about earlier? Knees out. So if he's not squeezing, what happens? The knees cave in, and look how everything starts folding in. That's bad, okay? Good thing to do, minute, 2 minutes. If you start able to build up to it, now you can start working some hip and ankle range of motion in here. So notice Marco's kind of going side to side. He's getting that good ankle flexion in there. He's still trying to keep the heels glued to the ground. And other thing, you guys, is when you guys talk about limited range of motion, one thing people really lack, okay, I know you're down there for a while, is internal range of motion in their femur hip area, okay? So one thing Marco can also do while he's down there is start working that, okay? Just in and out, trying to squeeze. He's not just relaxing, but he's squeezing those adductors and adductors back and forth, trying to activate them, okay? Because if they're not activated, we're not going to have a strong, stable squat in the bottom position.
Cool. So again, that is a pelvis and hip mobility exercise. All right, the entire time we are going to, thanks sir, the entire time you got to be focused on maintaining a very tight and engaged core. Your core needs to be rock solid through the entire range of motion of any squat, really any workout you really do, period. Okay, so those address a lack of flexibility. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is a lack of stability and coordination. So a lot of times, I actually see this with yoga. Okay, people think they go to yoga to work on their flexibility, and really, it's not that at all. You go to yoga to work on your stability. And the first thing you need to build is stability, and then the flexibility can come. The same thing is true with CrossFit. If you don't have a stable core and you work on flexibility, you're just going to build in neurological bad habits that will make you more prone to injury moving forward. The best way to work your core stability and the coordination of all these little muscles that keep you stabilized is with the plank. So let's talk about that. May I have the eraser again, sir? Thank you so much. So, when we're talking about core stability, we got to talk about the muscles of your core, okay? So, we've got our cross section again, okay? We've got our disc right here. This blue is just not my buddy. There.
Get him black.
And, all right, so, now the muscles that I want to talk about are called the interspinal muscles. And they move and they keep our spine stabilized while we're doing activity. You've got some that attach to this part right here. You've got some that attach to this part right here. You've got some that even come from here and then go 2 down and attach to about right here, okay? And what they do is they work to actually stabilize all these joints together. So you've got ones that attach this guy to this guy, making sure that those guys are stable. You've got ones that attach this guy to this guy. The ones we're going to talk about today are called the Multifidei. They go from the spinous process right here down 2 segments to the lamina, or the mammillary process of 2 segments below. And they help stabilize the way that the spine moves, because as you move, right, there's a lot of joints here. those little tiny muscles are the only muscles that can help you maintain the small intersegmental alignment that you need to make sure your spine stays strong. And those muscles, unfortunately, get systematically deactivated because of the way that we live our lives. Most of us have been sitting for a living since we were 5 years old, okay? Sitting neurologically deactivates those muscles because you're at rest, right? Those muscles don't need to be engaged when you're asleep, right? Well, sitting mimics that exact same state of relaxation. You know, a lot of us drive, okay? When you're sitting for more than 20 minutes, especially in that little micro vibration that the car provides you, all those get deactivated, all right? And then what do we do when we get out of the car? We get out and just live our life. Well, all those muscles are totally dead, right? So then what happens to your spine? It gets all out of place, and those subluxations that we were talking about that destroy your spine perpetuate. So then what happens is, well, you want to move around, so all those big moving muscles, all right, these ginormous interspinal muscles right through here that move us around, they activate, but they are too big, too strong, and too dumb to do the work of the interspinal. Does that make sense? They can't do it. They can lift 1,000 pounds, right, but they cannot stabilize your spine. So planking and engaging your core in that way is the best way to reactivate those muscles and wake them up. So Drew's going to walk you guys through a great plank. The side planks are even more important, so we're going to start with those. When we do the side planks, all right, you are working the downside interspinals, the downside multifidei. They are extremely important, so we'll start with that right now. You guys know what disengage and
So you want to start on the side, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, so Marco is going to get his feet. Now, there's 2 ways you can do your side planks. Now, Marco's going to go with the heart, or actually 3 ways, we can talk about it. 3 different ways. First one we're going to talk about is kind of the middle of the road, feet stacked up. Now, if you guys kind of walk or draw a straight line, right, through the legs, through the hips, and into the shoulder, it's nice and straight. What we don't want is that hip to start sagging. We want to squeeze this whole bottom side like Marco talked about a minute ago, and just hold that nice tight position. Also, shoulder alignment, right? Stacking our weight into the floor. Now, if you guys have a trouble with balance, you can obviously put that hand up. That's going to help work that balance and hold that position, all right? But we're not done there. We got to still keep all this nice and tight. Still squeezing that butt, still squeezing those abs, but also nice and tight on that bottom side, all right? Other way we can challenge it, or actually the easier way, I think, is doing our staggered feet, kind of toe to heel thing. Or we can make it harder, or yeah, drop to the knee. I know the knees get a little bit work, but as you progress, you get that bottom knee off the ground. Now, if you really want to challenge yourself, he's going to lift his leg nice and parallel to the floor. He's already been holding this position, so he's already starting to feel a little bit. But that's going to make it work even harder. Okay, go ahead, relax. All right. Now we're going to talk about the other side. You got, or we'll get it from the front view. Same thing. Biggest thing we don't want to do, guys, is what we don't want to hyperextend. Mark always talks about keeping that neutral spine. So if he starts hyperextending, that hip's going to come forward of his toes and his feet. We want that nice straight line as best you can. If you guys are unsure of how you look in your plank, videotape yourself, okay? Watch yourself and correct it next time you do it, all right? Go ahead, relax. Now for the front plank, okay? So, one thing that I always love to tell my people, all right, we're going to talk about the shoulders down. We never want to relax the upper body and let our body sink through the shoulders. I know some of you guys have seen like tigers walk and their shoulder blades popping out. We don't want those shoulder blades popping off our back, okay? Marco, if I put my hand here, he's going to be thinking about pressing his muscles, right, to my palm or to the ceiling, all right? Keeping that butt up or hips sagging, that's losing that core. So see how that butt popped up? The hips were sagging a second ago? One thing I like to tell my people is imagine you had a tail, tuck your tail between your legs. That's going to turn on those butt cheeks, all right? Nice locked out knees, straight legs, okay? Everything nice and tight. If I lose this, okay, my hips start sagging, the distance between my ribs and my pelvis start opening up. Think about doing a crunch to where your ribs are coming down towards your waistline, all right? But he's not rounding, okay? He's not losing any of that neutral spine. Beautiful.
So, some easier ways to do this. Number 1, you can come up to your hands. Believe it or not, puts less pressure on your core because the angle is not so flat.
Yep.
The other way you can do it is very tempting to fast track this stuff, okay? You're gonna work up to a 2-minute front plank, 1 minute on the side, but don't rush into that, okay? It's better to do 20 seconds of a side plank than it is to do of a working the muscles you need to. And all you're gonna be doing is stressing your joints. Plank, you must. Best time to plank is either in the morning before your activities of the day or before a workout to wake up all those muscles that have been deactivated by our sedentary lifestyles. All right, so the third thing, the third reason why people do not squat the right way is immature neurological patterns, right? So you haven't been trained, you haven't done it enough, or B, bad neurological habits. So you rush through going too low, too quick, all right? And the way that we can really retrain this is with this weighted plate drill. So what Drew's gonna do is he's gonna help me out by grabbing this plate away from me when I'm at the bottom of my squat. So you can walk them through and do the overhead, you grab it away and I stay there.
You want to do that in front first?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Maybe do it again.
Yeah. All right, so Marco is going to really engage his core by utilizing a counterbalance weight, okay? So when he goes down into the squat, I'm gonna have Marco actually hold that weight out in front. He's gonna really make that core really have to work. Now, the hard part is when I take the weight away. Can you maintain that same position? Notice you have a little rock to it, right?
Yeah, man.
So go ahead, grip it. Now really tighten up and hold it. Look, much better, right? I'm gonna have him do it one more time. And hold it. There it is, right? Go ahead and stand up and relax. Good. So that is gonna be a trick to see if you are really engaging the proper muscles in the bottom of your squat. That you don't have to go this heavy. 10 kilos is roughly 25 pounds, and that can get pretty spicy. Even 5 to 10 pounds will help get you to where you need to be, but having a partner take that plate away and seeing if he can maintain, or you can maintain, that same proper squat technique is key. Now, you want a lighter weight? I'm just teasing. So this one is now going to be more advanced, okay? This is going to be a lot more, not just core, but also that upper back, shoulders when he's squatting, okay? So same thing, he's going to focus on that, and I'm just going to take it away, okay? And he's going to try to tighten up and grab it. Good. Release. Let me do it one more time. Grab it. Hold it. And now I'm going to let him hold, but on this one, I want him to stand up, maintaining that locked out arm, and stand up. Good. Now, if you guys are working out a lot and you have trouble with that overhead position, that is a great warm-up tool to get you ready for overhead squats, which is more of an advanced squat, but don't get there unless your air squat is on point.
So the reason why that works to help retrain neurological patterns is because with the weight there, it forces you to fire up muscles that you need. When you take the weight away, it forces your body to maintain those positions even without the stimulus there. So it's a great tool to help retrain your neurology, all right? Make sure you guys aren't going too deep here, okay? So the biggest thing you need to do is on your own time, film yourself squatting from the side and from the back. And you have to make sure you understand how deep it is that you can go safely before doing that butt wing thing, all right? So making sure your core stays stable. But all those workouts are gonna really help with everything you do.
I just wanted to add on to that. Try not to do it in front of a mirror, guys. I don't personally like mirrors. I know everybody likes global gym mirrors. They like to see their arm pump and all that kind of thing. Like Marco said, film yourself so you don't watch yourself in the middle of the movement, because when you're in the middle of the movement, you're not really feeling the corrections. You're just going off your own cues. So do it, film it, watch it, then try to create good motor pattern on your own without watching yourself in a mirror, okay?
Yeah, and is it better to look at your form at the beginning of your workout or at the end?
Ooh, I think you want to see, did you maintain it throughout?
Right. Once you start adding the fatigue factor, you really start to see the chinks in your armor.
Sure.
And we all have improvements that need to be made, all right? I've butt whipped a time or two in my life, all right? You know, the first time I hurt myself in the military working out was because I was doing really low squats and I didn't know how to do it the right way. I was just going low. Question?
What about constant squats in a set?
Constant squats.
What should that look like? Taylor's asking.
What about constant squats in a set? Well, what it should look like in fast progression is just taking all of that and just doing it over and over again the right way. So I can, bang out like 5 air squats right now, and I'll show you that what I'm really concentrating on, okay, is nice neutral core right here, okay? I'm going to maintain this. I'm going to maintain my low back curve the entire time, all right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just making sure you're conscious every single time. And if you got to slow down and make sure you're not going too deep, that's exactly what you need to do.
Is that Taylor F?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Taylor, you remember how we always do tempo squats in our warm-ups? That's what we're focusing on, is the consistent squat technique and form on every single one and prepping those muscles for consecutive sets.
Nice. All right. So we all have improvements to make, right? When are we done improving? When we're dead, right? We all have aspects of our game that need our attention and need our input, need our thought, need our focused dedication and intention, all right? These fundamentals of core stability, hip mobility, are applicable not just to squats, guys, but every type of squat. They're applicable to box jumps, right? When you catch yourself at the top of that box, are you in a strong position? Are your knees out, or are your knees weak? Or is your low back rounding over, okay? Everything needs your attention. Rowing, making sure your core is stable while you're rowing and not folding in half is huge. All these stuff. Burpees. After you come up from the ground in a burpee, when you catch yourself in that squat before you jump, is your squat form good or is it crap? These are the fundamentals that, when you utilize them, apply to every single aspect of your physical game, whether it be CrossFit, soccer, lifting, climbing, whatever it is. We are never done improving. And that's why I love doing what I do as a chiropractor. My physicality is a huge defining part of who I am. I'm not me unless I can run the adventures that I love to run. I need to be climbing mountains. I need to be doing box jumps. I need to be able to sweat. I need to be able to be a physical person. That needs to happen so that I can be a man. And I know that there's aspects of this for each and every single one of you so that you can be you, the man and the woman of your own dreams. And that's why your health is so important, okay? So, in terms of CrossFit Unrivaled, as soon as these guys are open again and able to take clients back into this gorgeous space that's been beautifully remodeled during this downtime, he's going to offer you guys a whole week of doing CrossFit at his expense.
Yes.
7 days. So talk about that briefly.
Yeah, guys, just like Marco said, we're going to offer an entire week free, okay? We are unsure quite yet of our exact opening date. We're hoping for a May 8th, May 9th opening date, but obviously we got to wait and see. But anybody realizes now, after these last 2 months of this pandemic, how important our health is, okay? The comorbidity issues in all these cases is hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular issues, respiratory issues. We all know it's a respiratory virus, right? What better way to combat any future illness than get yourself moving again? Like Marco talked about, he's not himself unless he is moving, and I want everybody to feel that same way. And I know for myself, I don't feel my normal self unless I'm moving, and also my mental state. This is a huge thing, that endorphins that we get from working out and just moving, being outside. And that's the great thing about this, is you guys get a whole week free, get a taste of it. We're not going to throw you guys in the fire, all right? We're going to make sure, just like Marco did, you guys are gradually doing proper scaling, proper reps, proper weight. That's what our coaches are trained for, okay? So you guys can get in here, get a whole week free, get a taste for it, and then you decide, hey, want to join or not?
Yeah, love it. All right, last thing, okay? Regardless of whatever life hack thing you might read on the internet, there is no stretch and there is no exercise that will correct a subluxation. It just does not exist, okay? That's why chiropractic is so important. When you've got bones that are not moving the right way or out of place, that needs to be corrected with a chiropractic adjustment. There's no other way to make that happen. And as long as that nervous system is pinched off and not communicating the right way, you are not going to be able to move the right way. And as long as that subluxation is present, your spine will be degenerating from the inside out. Our health is everything. Everything. And there are a million aspects to our health. There's that physical component that we're all really preoccupied with right now. But on top of that, there is the mental component, the emotional component, the social component. There's that spiritual component. And they are all infinitely important. Any investment you make in your health is an investment that will improve the entire quality of every single aspect of your life. And so Drew's running a promotion because he is passionate about this mission. At the practice, we are passionate about this health mission. So we've been running that Love It 14 special. If you're an existing patient and you've got somebody that you love that is family or is like family to you, we will do that initial exam, whatever x-rays or diagnostic testing that individual needs at our expense. That is a $345 value. You've got a few days left on that, so please, if you know somebody that needs to be getting their spine adjusted to be as healthy as humanly possible, get them in. Thank you guys so much for joining us, Drew. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Live higher.
Bye, guys.